Hey there, my team family. This is Books Nelson here, and today we're going to get into what is actually happening with this 100 overall locked behind gambling situation with the content right now. So right off the top, I'm going to get one thing clear. I'm fully against everything that 2K is doing and going back on their word as far as the player market. However, in discussing what's happening, we are going to talk about the reasons that this is happening, and sometimes reasons can sound like justification. Just because there's a reason for doing something doesn't make it the right thing to do. It's unequivocally the wrong thing to do. But I want to explain how we got here and what's really happening so that the community, and this is the main reason I'm making this video, can realize how much power it has to change the state of the game. A lot of the MyTeam community hasn't been a part of other competitive communities like a Smash Brothers or an Overwatch or what have you, and they don't realize that for all of the money that's going around with the whales, the community still has tremendous power. You can almost think of it like all-star voting, right? Like there's the fan vote, the player vote, the coach vote, the media vote, or whatever. Everything has a percentage, and the community percentage in how the game goes is very much a powerful thing, and I never want the community to lose sight of that. So let's get right into it. So before we even can talk about what's going on, we have to really talk about how we got here, right? So early back in the day, you had pre-MT sales. Now, I'm sure from the very beginning people were buying MT, but it wasn't mainstream, right? And people really love MyTeam, all this other stuff. Obviously with 2K, there's always complaints. But, you gambled on packs. It was cool. You had a chance to get the cards. 2K was getting paid. People were paying their money. People were getting cards. Everybody was happy, right? Then, and I'm not blaming the MT sellers, but again, we have to explain what's happening. So MT sellers in the last, say, 3 years became really popular, mainstream, right? Whereas you could go to, I won't say an average person, but the average hardcore player was buying MT from the black market MT. And so instead of buying VC, they were buying MT, and 2K is losing a grip of money on this. And not only are they losing a ton of money, but in order to police it, they have to spend money. So I'm going to let you guys know a little bit about who I am. For those of you who don't know me, I am a professional storyboard, comic book artist, designer, and that stuff. So what does this mean? This means not only have I had work in video games, but more importantly, a lot of my friends who I came up drawing with, close friends, work in some of these companies, right? And I don't just mean 2K, I mean all over the industry, right? Wherever there's concept art, I probably have somebody that either works there or work with the people there. So when I talk about what these companies do, I'm not just guessing, right? There are some things that I have direct knowledge of. There are some things that are very, very, very good educated guesses based on how these companies work. And we don't just mean video companies. Entertainment companies, by and large, do a lot of the same things. That's one thing I can guarantee you throughout the industry. I spoke to friends at Netflix and blah, 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 who've gone through some of the same things, right? So anyway, so 2K, in order to ban, so we had the ban wave, right? With the 25,000, 250K tournament, right? Where they did the ban wave, where everybody got banned. And so people were upset about that, not because they were banned for breaking the rules, but because years had gone by where everybody knew. It was like juicing in baseball, right? It was a known, a poorly kept secret that people were buying MT because there was no way to actually get the cards to be competitive. This was a problem, right? And it's what we're going through right now. If you're trying to be competitive and you're going to win $250,000, you have to make sure that you get the cards that you need to be competitive. And so since the players who were buying MT on the black market weren't getting banned, basically everybody had to do it if they were expected to compete. Again, very similar to baseball. If you're not going to ban him for juicing, then I have to take steroids in order to be on an even playing field. So in this sense, 2K is totally complicit. But in order to get the ban, what do they have to do? This is actually very expensive, right? Because it's a whole bunch of tech and personnel and blah, blah, blah. Everybody who's working on finding people who are banning and maintaining that service and the service itself, you're talking about, I can't give you a number, but I would say These people are making easily 6 figures a year a piece, and grand total is costing them millions and millions of dollars a year. I can't even tell you how much because of the size of 2K as a game, but it costs a lot of money to have security on any kind of software where people are constantly interacting with it. And that's no different in the case of 2K, right? And so when people are buying a lot of MT, what happens is the pack market, when it's behind gambling, it's good for 2K when it's like either people spend a lot of money in a reasonable amount of time, or they spend a lot of time and a reasonable amount of money. They know at the extremes, there's going to be people who spend an unreasonable amount of money and an unreasonable amount of time, right? So on one hand, you've got the whales. On the other hand, you've got the no money spent. And this all goes to crap because the MT, for lack of a better term, democratizes things. It says, for a reasonable amount of money, you can have all of the cards in the game. So this eliminates the people spending an unreasonable amount of money in the game. So they have to stop it. And so this year, finally, we get to the point where they say, well, you know what? We've got a fairy tale we're going to tell you guys. You can get every card in the game for a combination of a reasonable amount of time and a reasonable amount of money, right? And this was actually fundamentally true throughout the year. Were the prices always perfect? That you can have that up for debate. But I can tell you as a no money spent person, I got Wemby and Kobe, right? Now, to be fair, I play my career. So this brings VC into my account that I can use on my team. So you can consider me a low money spent, not a no money spent, because I do have some VC to use on the game mode from playing the game, which is not available to your average MyTeam player who only plays MyTeam. That having been said, even if you took the VC that I use, on the whole year, it probably wouldn't equate to more than maybe a couple of $100, which in the world of MyTeam, for a whole year so far, you know, the months that the game's been out, that would fit into the reasonable amount of money category. So basically, I'd be able to earn about half the cards from a collection and then buy maybe the last couple of pink diamonds or whatever it may be, and, you know, depending on the time of the collection, and finish it up. So what happens? We get news of a 7% drop in profits, right? Because 2K themselves basically eliminated the whales. There's no reason to spend a whole bunch of money gambling for packs when at the end of the day, if you want to every single week, you can just pop $50, maybe $100, depending on how much is in your account, grab the collection, get the card you want, build up for that, you know, over the top lock in, and have all of the best cards in the game. There's no reason to spend thousands and thousands of dollars in a single weekend. And if you imagine a chart in your head where you have 10 people and, you know, 8 people spend $100, the 9th person spends, you know, $1,000, but the 10th person spends $10,000, who's the most important person by far on that list? It's obviously the guy spending $10,000. You could tell the other 9 people to go to hell because that person can fund your entire operation, basically, right? So the news that they've dropped off 7% comes out, and now they have to recoup that money. And 7% is a specific number. And so here we get to another subject, right? Everything that 2K does is backed up by very hard data. Right? So when the cards are released, this is a specific thing based on people's spending habits and the time that other things are released and blah, blah, blah. So when 7% drop off happens in profits, they say, well, here's what my team can do to make up that number. Now, I've heard the number at something like $91 million. I'm not going to buy into any specific number that doesn't come directly from 2K to my ears directly, because any third-party source can be missing information, which is in 2K's best interest because they're a competitive company. And, you know, while some knowledge is going to be public, every number that your enemy doesn't know is to your benefit. Well, let's just say it's something like that number. We can round down to $90 million. Let's say they lost $90 million, which in the grand scheme of things for 2K and Take-Two Interactive as a company is not that much money because they make a lot of money. But let's say it's $90 million. So then they have to say, well, we need to get that $90 million back. Now, the way we think of it as consumers, and rightly so, is Daddy Warbucks is missing a yacht that he's going to get this year. He's not going to be able to take his 10th vacation. And so the everyman has to pay. That's not the whole picture. There's some element of that with the shareholders. But keep in mind, 2K has an expensive development cycle. And whatever you feel about the game, the fact of the matter is that it costs money to employ all of the people. I'm not saying 2K is not doing well, but they have plans and targets that they need to hit in order to be able to fund those plans, right? And so when that 7% drop off comes in and it's the quote unquote $90 million number comes in, they go, well, what can my team do to make it up? So when we think as a community, okay, well, how does this hurt us? Well, first try was Michael Beasley, right? And it's like, well, you can just buy this card. People bought the card, but there's a problem with Michael Beasley, right? Michael Beasley might be guaranteed money from a good amount of the community. The problem is Michael Beasley, because he is attainable, he can't be too good. When I say too good, what do I mean? I mean, he cannot be far and above by leaps and bounds the best player at his position must have in a serious competitive setting, right? If you make him like that, you have to make him unattainable. All year, people have been talking about pacing, right? Why has the pacing had to be relatively slow? Because all of the cards are available. And if they make the pacing too fast, what they do is they can undermine your Kobe's and your Wemby's and your LeBrons and stuff like that, right? You don't want to undermine it. Those cards have to be playable for a certain amount of time for the audience to feel like they're a good investment, right? So Beasley being in that area is cool, but he's not enticing enough and he doesn't make enough money that, he really changes the game. It's just a nice thing to put in, but it's not $90 million, right? Or at least, whatever that theoretical number is, because he's capped by his own attainability. So since everyone can have Beasley and he can't be too powerful, what do you need to do to get people to really spend money? You have to put in cards that are imbalanced, right? The cards that are an unfair competitive advantage. Now, while you want those cards out in the wild, there's an obvious problem there. Is really, you can kill, the problem is you can kill the game mode early. So let's say hypothetically, if it's all, the best you can do in 2K is, Wemby with Park, Sigs, and everything is maxed, right? And he can play out of position, right? Once you do that, there's nowhere to go. People don't have a reason to open packs. The mode is dead. You have to get people to feel like they really want to buy packs, but you also can't squash the earnings for the rest of the year, right? So, and this is a tough situation. And when I say tough, again, not excusing 2K, I'm saying strategically. This is a tough situation where you have to say, okay, I need them to open packs. I need them to open a lot of packs, but I can't literally ruin the mode. So what it looks like on the surface, when you see a graphic like this, right? And you see KG and all of these opals that you can't get, it looks like the average player is being punished while the whales are getting the unfair cards. But 2K did something very interesting. And Troy Dan died for all of 2K's sins, basically. Troy Dan spent a combined roughly, let's not say spent, he opened $7,000 worth of packs and did not get a lot of the cards he wanted, right? You could argue, like, depending on what you wanted, you could look at what Troy Dan pulled and go, that would have been a $7,000 L for me. Because not only did he not get the 100 overalls, but he didn't get several of the opals that he wanted. In that first pull, he didn't get a lot of the opals, right? For the All-Star set, I think it was, right? So Troy Dan showed how bad the odds really are. So what does this mean? This means that for the functioning 2K player, as most of the community has realized, Shaq and Kareem don't really exist. And this goes back to what I was telling you guys, that there are so few people that have these cards that the community can easily ban them. Because if you have these cards, they're not in salary cap, right? So you can eliminate entire game mode. So now they're going into triple threat, maybe triple threat co-op. And really, we're talking about unlimited. That's what we're really talking about, right? Obviously, there's also clutch time. But really, you're talking about seeing them in unlimited and having to play against this card for 20 minutes. So there's such a small group that has the card, and it's also a small group that they're playing against if they're playing at the more competitive levels. You're really only talking about your content creators and your high-ish level unlimited players saying, I see that card, I'm not going to play you. Now, if you're out of quits, all you have to do is foul them, call timeouts, put the controller down, take 5 and 24-second violations, and make it an absolutely miserable time. And let them know on the mic, this card's banned, don't play it again. Put the card on the bench, I'll give you a real game. But this card is banned by the community. I'm sorry that you spent what you spent to get it, or maybe you got really lucky and wanted to feel yourself playing an unfair card, but we don't agree with what 2K is doing, and in order to save the game, we're banning the card. So bench him, or you're not going to get a game. Right? And if the whole community, and when we say the whole community, we don't mean the millions of people playing MyTeam. We actually just mean maybe a couple 100,000 people at the top of the more hardcore side of MyTeam, because there are so few people to do this. People say, well, if I quit, then I'm going to get banned. No, you're not going to play enough Kareems and Shaqs that this is going to be an actual problem in your account. Look at it. So from your perspective, you see 1 or 2 Kareems and Shaqs over the course of weeks, and every time you see them, you ban them. From their perspective, every time they play with the card, it's a bad experience because there are more of you than there are of them. Effectively, this was a move to punish the whales. They said, we're going to, break open the piggy bank on the whales, literally torture our pay piggies with the idea of them being able to be really unfair, right? So if they have Kareem at the 5 and Shaq at the 4 and KG at the 3 and whatever 2 broken cards they're going to put at the 1 and 2, theoretically they have an all 100 lineup. They get that big dopamine release of like, ooh, I got all of the coolest stuff. And then they go online and they stomp people like Uncle Demi did, right? He goes in with Kareem and haha, I'm cheesing you. This is so cool. I'm so cool. That fantasy that they sell to those guys can get $1,000, $5,000. And mind you, we see Troy Dan, but we don't see the lawyers and doctors and financial advisors and actors and athletes who have this mode and secretly just throw money at it, right? All of those celebrities that Ronnie 2K talks to, yeah, some of it is just press, but some of these people actually play 2K. We see them in the rec, right? And some of them are playing MyTeam, and it's nothing to them to be like, oh, I want that Shaq. Let me tell their assistant, open up $3,000 worth of packs for me. I want that Shaq. You know what I mean? And what do we say about the 1 through 10? That one person spending the 10 grand is more powerful than person number 1 spending 100, person number 2 spending 50, person number 3 spending 500, and on and on. Like, they're much more powerful. So they really said, well, we're going to sell the pay piggies a dream and make up for that 7%. We get to have our cake and eat it too. We don't really put power creep into the mode, because at the rate at which people will get the opals and the power level of the opals, quite frankly, for competitive advantage, you don't need any of those opals. For every opal card in all of these collections, there is a corresponding pink diamond or diamond card that is absolutely fine, right? Like, this Braun is fantastic. To be honest with you, most of the community can't take advantage of what's best about Braun, and that he has the Kemba escape. Most of you guys, no offense, don't even know how to use it. And I know you don't know how to use it because most people in the rec don't even know how to use it. And the rec is always ahead in terms of dribble moves. This Jokic, fantastic. But you can also still run pink diamond Anthony Davis and be fine, right? And on for the rest of the whole group. Even Shea, play Devin Booker, you're cool, right? Get the James Harden from the season pass, you're absolutely cool. The opals are good, but they don't provide a competitive advantage. Shaq, Kareem, and the upcoming KG provide a competitive advantage. Your card can do things that my card can't do at a combination of height, speed, SIGs, and shot speed that I cannot keep up with if we're both of equal skill. So having the opals be unavailable just gives the regular person a reason to lock in the sets, right? because now, and a reason to open packs, because it's like, okay, if I can open this many packs and hope I get an opal, and if I don't, I can lock in the set. So maybe they can have their cake and eat it too and still get, you know, 50, $100 out of a regular person, right? Like a non-whale, right? And 100 might be a little high, but let's say 50, 20 out of a non-whale who's playing the game. They're putting time into the game, so they have MT. So between a combination of MT, VC, they can still lock in a set for a swing at this opal and take a few swings at the opal in packs. And they can do this for a certain amount of time because of the odds of these 100 overall cards, where true power creep doesn't really enter the mode because you're just not seeing those cards often enough. And theoretically, even if somebody had an all opal squad and you had an all pink diamond and diamond squad, it mixed in with the opals that you can get for free that are good, like not free, but affordable, that are good, like Zion and James Harden and stuff like that, you're competing against them fine. Whoever wins is still going to be the person who hits their shot and times the defense. There might be a couple of times during the game where you're like, I wish I had that card. But for the most part, it's going to be about your skill, right? So power creep isn't really in the mode, right? They don't really have to kill the mode with this release of the content. So this was really to punish the pay piggy. So what's the drawback? The drawback is, well, we can only do this for so long because the people who are playing the mode regularly are not getting the cards that they want, right? Now, if you're 2K, you don't have a community manager who has to answer for this, but obviously they have flat out gone back on their word. They said they would restructure the mode so that everything was available, and then they switched back to the old model, except without the problem of the auction house and the MT market, right? And having to ban all of their community because that's the only way for their community to get the cards, right? Not even mentioning the snipers and stuff like that. So now, so they have to come back from this at some point. And this is where we get into battered wife syndrome with the, 2K community and 2K, where they feel like, well, we have to balance out the abuse with the vacation trips and the sweet words, right? It's like, yeah, I beat you up for the weekend, but on Monday I took you out. And so stuff like the spotlights, they kind of screwed it up with the Wild West set because the Rush set with Austin Reeves, because the challenges were a little bit like too annoying to really bother with. Plus you have James Harden, who's everybody's going to probably get eventually if you really play the game mode, pop your XP coins. And for a person like me who plays rec, I'm going to probably have that by Wednesday the latest, right? And I'm not even skipping levels. So, it wasn't the right idea, but basically when we come around and start giving them free stuff, they'll forgive us for X amount of weeks of locking all of the cards behind a paywall. Because, I mean, quite frankly, these are Galaxy Opals. These cards are all still deeply flawed in the terms of 2K, right? Like even this LeBron, just for an example, I don't want to get too into each individual card. His signature size up, LeBron James. I'll make a video on this, but having a bad signature size up is bad, right? Like this is a great card, don't get me wrong, but it's a great card for this time of year. You can very easily make this card way better. And it's a great card, but you can very easily make this card better. And this is, I don't know what, maybe still the best opal in the game, arguably. There's some other good ones here, but my point is, as good as these opals are, these opals or cards very similar or even better than these opals will eventually be in the player market. It's just a matter of when. And that's what 2K is saying. How long can we go before we invite them back in? So the punishment for the pay piggies was, you're going to spend a lot of money on these packs and you may or may not get any of the cards you want, and you're spending the grip. The punishment for the average person is you're locked out of the player market. Like effectively the player market is locked during this period that these cards are all left up to gambling and RNG, right? So that's where we are, right? Is 2K is probably reasonably soon going to start giving out good content again, free content, stuff like spotlights and a new domination and stuff that people really enjoy and earnable cards and I don't know about locker codes, but there will be really good cards that are earnable soon. And this is one of the reasons I'm making this video. Their goal is to make you forget about this terrible month since the All-Star game, right? Like, yeah, it was a bad month. We made some missteps, our bad. But that's not what's really going on. What's going on is they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Because if they get away with it, they can say, okay, we can be fair for these many months out of the year. But when we want to be unfair, this is how we get away with it. We can torture our whales like this. We can torture our regular players like this. And then we'll come back and apologize to everybody later on. So that's where we are right now, leading into this coming up week of content. Like everybody else has said, I advise you ignore this content. I mean, if you're playing the mode, maybe you use your MT on some of these packs just to see if you get anything. I don't recommend any of that. Honestly, I think the smartest thing you could do is to play salary cap or play offline or take a break. Completely ignore unlimited and these upper tier cards. Go into an earning period, right? Where you're just building up MT. And then when the player market opens back up, be ready to spend and get back in the game in terms of unlimited. What the greater community has to do is just recognize the situation for what it is, that we're locked out of the player market. 2K doesn't want us to participate. They want the whales to participate because 2K knows that most of you can't participate anymore because you spent your resources on the All-Star pack and whatever resources you had left over, you spent on the Wild West pack trying to get Shaq. So they know mathematically you're out of the game. They have that data. You simply do not have enough time to earn enough, to pull enough, to be in the game from an MT or even low money spent standpoint. The packs are too expensive. The odds are too low. This is now just the last squeezing of blood from the whales. Maybe it ends after this week. Maybe they finish it off and go full starting 5 of 100s before they shut it down. But either next week or probably 2 weeks after, say the following Tuesday after the next 2 weeks, this is probably going to be shut down. There's probably going to be some content. They're balancing it with the PR is my guess. They're looking at, how bad the community is responding. They're probably waiting to see for player engagement to drop to a certain level, and then emergency, break glass, here's the good content, here's the free content, here's the stuff that gets everybody wanting to play, here's the attainable card on a long but reasonably enjoyable grind like your spotlights, and sorry guys, we were just trying some stuff out, we're experimenting with some stuff and yada yada yada. And I'm just here to say, never forget, don't lose sight and underestimate how powerful the community is to change what they're doing. Right now, you see some content creators have picked up on this right away, but some content creators are still in the mode of, I know this is bad, but I still need to pay rent, so I'm just going to keep business as usual. But that's very, very, very short-sighted, because if 2K keeps doing stuff like this, and 2K knows this and they don't want this to happen, they can hurt the mode beyond repair. Now, within 2K, there's, a limit to how much they believe they can hurt the mode. Remember, funny enough, ironically, Take-Two has another game coming out called GTA. And it's not about GTA specifically, it's what GTA represents. GTA represents a time suck from another part of the industry, right? So there are games that have nothing to do with Fortnite or Apex or Overwatch or whatever that were hurt by the release of those games because it was just our consumers are not giving us time. We're in the time and attention economy. And if as the community doesn't do what it can to keep this game mode with some level of integrity, I say keep like it has any integrity, haha. But if you don't work to make this better, it can get reduced to only the hardcore community. And that's bad for everybody. 2K is kind of the least bad for, because the hardcore community is still going to have enough whales in it to justify it. They'll just cut the budget of the mode, right? But for you, the players, it's going to ruin your matchmaking. It's going to ruin the balance of a competition. And it's also going to ruin the quality of life in the features of the mode, because this is a live service. It does cost money to all of this stuff, the card art, the modes, just getting the cards online. Everything that happens in this mode is a human being that is paid well. And that human being will be let go if the mode falls below a certain level of engagement, which it will do if the community encourages what 2K is doing. 2K is going to stop it at a certain point, but we need this to not come back. This can't be a thing that they do every year or a couple of times a year where they lock the community out of the player market or whatever way there is to obtain cards. This cannot be a hardcore gambling mode that you dump a bunch of resources in to get that sweet dopamine release, and then it just never happens. And it's like real life gambling. Most people leave the casino having to make a really bad phone call to their wife. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me. I will see you guys in the next one. For all of you supporting this channel, I very much appreciate it. This is Book Nelson, and I'm out.